The receipt sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I actually looked at it. When I finally did, I felt something between confusion and irritation. The total didn't make sense. I'd purchased roughly the same items I'd been buying for years. The number was almost double what those same items cost when I first started shopping at this store. I pulled out my phone and searched for old photos. I'm one of those people who photographs receipts for expense tracking. I found a comparable shopping trip from 3 years earlier. Same store, same approximate items. The difference wasn't subtle, it was dramatic. That evening I did something I'd been avoiding. I went through every recurring expense in my life, every subscription, every service, every payment that happened automatically without my active decision each month. The total was staggering. Not because any single item was outrageous, because the accumulation had happened so gradually that I'd never confronted the complete picture. What I discovered over the following weeks changed how I think about spending in the current economy. Not because I became a different person, because the economy became a different economy and I hadn't updated my behaviour to match. The rules that guided smart spending 5 years ago no longer apply. The habits that were reasonable a decade ago have become traps. The assumptions embedded in normal consumer behaviour were formed in an economy that no longer exists. Today I'm sharing 12 specific things that no longer make financial sense in this year. Not because these things were always foolish. Many were perfectly reasonable choices in previous conditions. The conditions changed. The choices didn't. Understanding what changed and why these behaviours now harm you more than they help is the difference between drowning in an economy designed to extract money and swimming through it with intention. Let me show you what no longer works. The first thing that no longer makes financial sense is treating convenience purchases as occasional indulgences rather than recognizing them as a system that's captured your behaviour. Convenience used to be something you paid for occasionally when circumstances justified it. The delivery when you were sick, the prepared food when time genuinely didn't exist for cooking, the premium for speed when speed actually mattered. Convenience has evolved into something different. It's become default behaviour that happens without conscious decision. The apps that make ordering effortless, the services that arrive without friction, the payments that process invisibly. Each individual instance feels minor. The system has been engineered to make it feel minor. The accumulated cost is anything but minor. People are paying massive premiums to save small amounts of time. The meal delivered costs double or more what the same ingredients would cost prepared at home. The items purchased through convenience apps carry markups invisible in the moment but obvious in monthly totals. Frictionless design encourages frequent unconscious spending. The one-click purchase, the saved payment method, the interface optimized to reduce the pause between wanting and buying. Each friction removed is a barrier to reflection removed. This isn't occasional convenience anymore, it's habitual convenience. The thing you used to do sometimes has become the thing you do constantly without noticing you're doing it. Small repeated costs compound into large annual losses that would shock anyone who calculated them honestly. The coffee purchased daily, the lunch ordered instead of prepared, the items that could wait but arrive tomorrow because tomorrow arrival exists. Each seems reasonable. The sum is substantial. Calculate your actual convenience spending for the past month, not the estimate. The actual total from account records. The number will likely exceed your assumption by significant margin. The second thing that no longer makes financial sense is assuming subscription services represent good value, because each individual subscription seems cheap. The subscription economy has expanded into virtually every category of spending: entertainment, software, food delivery, fitness, news, gaming. Services that were once purchases became ongoing payments. Services that didn't exist became new subscriptions. Individually, these subscriptions seem affordable. $10 monthly, $15 monthly, even $20 monthly doesn't seem significant for something you use. The multiplication is where the math breaks down. The average household now carries numerous active subscriptions. 10 subscriptions at $15 each is $1,800 annually. 20 subscriptions, which isn't unusual for households with multiple people and varied interests, becomes significant yearly expense that never appears as a single line item. Content and services are intentionally fragmented to prevent cancellations. The streaming service that used to have everything now has some things. Watching what you want to watch requires multiple services. The fragmentation isn't accidental, it's strategic. Consumers are locked into recurring payments through habit and inertia. The subscription you signed up for during a free trial continues billing long after you stopped actively using it. The service you meant to cancel got pushed to next month, then forgotten. The subscription model has shifted advantage from consumer to provider. The sale that once required convincing you to purchase each time now only requires convincing you once. After that, your inertia does their work. Audit your subscriptions against actual usage, not intended usage, actual usage in the past 30 days. The gap between what you pay for and what you use reveals money that's flowing away without return. The third thing that no longer makes financial sense is upgrading devices on the schedules that manufacturers suggest, rather than the schedules that functionality demands. The phone that works fine feels inadequate when the new version releases. The laptop that accomplishes every task seems slow when benchmarks show faster options exist. The device that was cutting edge 3 years ago appears outdated when marketing tells you it's outdated. Newer versions of products increasingly offer minimal real improvement over their predecessors. The generational leaps that once justified upgrades have diminished into incremental refinements that affect edge cases most users never encounter. People are paying premium prices for marginal gains that don't meaningfully improve their experience. The camera that's slightly better, the processor that's somewhat faster, the feature that exists but that they'll never use. The upgrade premium purchases improvements that exist technically but not practically. Ownership cycles have been shortened by design to force continuous spending. The software update that slows older devices, the accessory changes that make previous purchases incompatible, the manufactured obsolescence that creates need where none existed. The phone that functions perfectly becomes unacceptable not through actual failure, but through psychological comparison to newer options. The financially sensible approach has shifted. Extend ownership cycles until genuine functional need emerges. The device that works continues working regardless of what newer devices offer. The replacement made necessary by failure makes sense. The replacement made desirable by marketing rarely does. The fourth thing that no longer makes financial sense is using payment plans and financing to purchase non-essential items, as if the total cost didn't matter because the monthly cost is manageable. Payment splitting has transformed how people perceive expensive purchases. The item that costs $2,000 feels unaffordable. The same item at $100 monthly for 20 months feels manageable. The total hasn't changed. The psychology has. This perceptual shift increases spending because it removes the shock that large purchases should create. The pause that would naturally occur when facing significant expenditure doesn't occur when the expenditure is fragmented into pieces that seem insignificant. Consumers focus on installments instead of total cost in ways that systematically lead to overspending. The question shifts from whether you should spend $2,000 to whether you can afford $100 monthly. These are different questions with different answers. Easy financing increases overall spending behavior across categories. Once payment splitting becomes normal for one purchase, it becomes normal for others. The capacity to add another 100 monthly seems to exist even when the sum of all monthly payments creates genuine strain. Debt is increasingly used for non-essential consumption in ways previous generations would have considered irresponsible. Financing a car made sense because cars were necessary and expensive. Financing a phone, financing furniture, financing clothing, each represents debt incurred for items that aren't strictly necessary and that could be obtained through saving. The normalization of consumer debt for non-essential items has made financial strain invisible until it becomes overwhelming. The monthly payments that each seem small combine into totals that consume income needed for wealth building. If you can't purchase something outright, the question isn't what payment plan works. The question is whether you should purchase it at all. The fifth thing that no longer makes financial sense is trusting that higher prices indicate higher quality or that branded products deliver value matching their premium. Price and value have disconnected in ways that reward brands more than consumers. The relationship that once existed, where paying more generally meant getting more, has been deliberately obscured. Higher prices are increasingly tied to perception rather than quality. The brand name on an item influences what can be charged regardless of what's inside. Products manufactured in the same facilities with the same materials carry dramatically different prices based on which logo appears. Branding creates artificial value differences that consumers accept because the branding feels like information. The assumption that the company charging more must offer more has become liability rather than useful heuristic. Status-driven spending delivers little long-term return for most purchases. The premium paid for prestige is premium paid for perception by others, who likely aren't paying attention anyway. The identity purchased through brand premium fades quickly, while the money spent remains gone. The products that actually perform better rarely cost dramatically more than adequate alternatives. The marginal improvement in quality doesn't justify the marginal increase in price at the high end. You pay for quality up to a point. Beyond that point, you pay for brand, status, and marketing. Evaluate products based on specifications and reviews rather than brand assumptions. The money saved by selecting adequate quality over premium branding accumulates into sums that matter more than the status that premium branding was supposed to provide. The sixth thing that no longer makes financial sense is purchasing new vehicles on the timelines that feel normal, rather than the timelines that financial logic supports. The car that's 3 years old runs fine. The car that's 5 years old runs fine. The car that's 7 years old, maintained properly, runs fine. The desire for newer isn't need for newer. The distinction matters enormously. Vehicles depreciate rapidly in early years. The purchase that costs $60,000 drops to $40,000 and then to $30,000, while the vehicle's actual utility decreases marginally, if at all. You're not paying for transportation improvements. You're paying for newness that evaporates into lost value. The cycle of purchasing new vehicles every few years represents one of the largest wealth transfers from consumers to corporations that exists. The perpetual payment, the perpetual depreciation, the perpetual drain. Extending ownership beyond the point where the vehicle feels current delivers financial advantage that compounds across a lifetime. The money not spent on vehicle premiums can be invested. The investment grows while the car you kept continues functioning. This doesn't mean driving unsafe or unreliable vehicles. It means driving reliable vehicles longer than culture suggests is appropriate. The disconnection between what's culturally normal and what's financially optimal is severe in vehicle ownership. The seventh thing that no longer makes financial sense is treating experiences as automatically worth whatever they cost, because experiences are supposedly what matter. Somewhere along the way, spending on experiences became morally superior to spending on things. The narrative emerged that experiences create memories while things just create clutter. Travel is valuable, concerts are valuable, dining out is valuable. This narrative has been exploited. Experience pricing has increased dramatically precisely because consumers have been taught to value experiences. The resistance to price that exists for physical items has diminished for experiences. Experiences have become extremely expensive relative to what they deliver. The concert ticket that costs hundreds plus fees plus parking plus time. The restaurant meal that costs double what the same food would cost prepared at home. The vacation whose total cost would shock most people if they calculated it before departure, rather than avoiding the calculation. The enjoyment is often short-lived compared to financial impact. The concert that provided 3 hours of entertainment consumed a week's worth of investment capacity. The meal enjoyed for an hour represented a day's wages. The experience arithmetic rarely favours the consumer when examined honestly. This doesn't mean avoiding all experiences. It means recognising that the over-things narrative has been weaponized by industries that sell experiences. The exemption from value analysis that experiences receive doesn't make financial sense. Calculate what you spent on experiences last year. Calculate what those same dollars would have become if invested over your remaining lifetime. The comparison clarifies what experiences actually cost in terms of future financial freedom. The eighth thing that no longer makes financial sense is adding protection plans, warranties, and insurance to purchases without understanding what protection you already carry. Fear sells. The moment of purchase creates vulnerability. The thing just bought might break. The investment just made might be lost. The extended warranty or protection plan offers insurance against that fear. Extra protections are sold using risk anxiety that doesn't match actual risk probability. The scenarios described are possible but unlikely. The fear activated is disproportionate to the statistical risk of the events described. Low probability problems are exaggerated to justify costs that represent profit center rather than protection value. These add-ons are profitable precisely because most people never use them. The math favors the seller, which means the math disfavors you. What makes this particularly senseless is the overlapping protection most people already have and don't realize. Existing coverage from manufacturers, retailers, and payment methods duplicates what's being sold separately. the credit card that includes purchase protection, the manufacturer warranty that's already included, the retailer policy that covers returns and defects. These existing protections often cover exactly what the additional protection claims to cover. Consumers pay twice for the same protection through ignorance of what they already have. The extended warranty that duplicates credit card coverage, the protection plan that overlaps manufacturer guarantee, the insurance that covers what homeowners' policy already covers. Before purchasing any protection add-on, document what protection already exists. The gap between existing coverage and additional coverage is usually far smaller than the salesperson suggests. Often, no gap exists at all. The ninth thing that no longer makes financial sense is expecting that prices will reflect value, delivered, rather than recognizing that pricing has become strategic extraction. The old model assumed rough relationship between cost and value. You paid for what you got. Higher prices meant more value, lower prices meant less. This assumption guided consumer decisions and generally worked. Corporate strategy has evolved beyond that model. Companies now rely on layered fees, subscriptions, and upsells that maximize extraction rather than value delivery. The goal isn't to deliver value worth the price. The goal is to extract maximum price regardless of value. Pricing models are designed to feel small but add up over time. The base price that seems reasonable, the fees added at checkout, the subscription required for features that used to be included, the upsell necessary to get what used to be standard. Costs have increased while quality and quantity have declined across categories. The package that got smaller while the price increased. The service that provides less while charging more. The product that's made cheaper while retailing higher. Add-ons and extras carry extreme markups precisely because they're presented after the purchase commitment is made. Once you've decided to buy, resistance to additional charges decreases. The strategic placement of upsells exploits this psychology. The original value proposition of many services has collapsed while the charging continues. You're paying for what something used to be, rather than what it currently is. Conscious evaluation of what you actually receive relative to what you pay reveals extraction that unconscious purchasing habits accept. The math that made sense years ago doesn't make sense now because what you're getting has changed while your perception of it hasn't. The 10th thing that no longer makes financial sense is making purchasing decisions quickly, because speed has been engineered to benefit sellers rather than buyers. The entire architecture of modern commerce is designed to reduce the time between wanting and buying. The one-click purchase, the instant checkout, the saved preferences that eliminate friction. Each optimization serves the seller by preventing the pause that might lead to reconsideration. Businesses use psychological triggers to accelerate decisions. Scarcity, urgency, limited time, low stock. These signals create pressure to act before thinking. They manufacture the sense that delay costs something when delay actually enables better decisions. Marketing creates artificial desire and urgency that feels real in the moment, but that reflection would dissolve. The item you suddenly need desperately, the deal that expires before you can evaluate, the opportunity that won't exist if you wait. These constructions serve sellers. Consumers are nudged into buying without conscious decisions through systems that have been refined over decades. The path from interest to purchase has been optimized to remove every opportunity for second thoughts. Habits form before people evaluate real cost because the evaluation opportunity has been engineered out of the process. Building pause into purchasing, any purchasing, restores advantage to the buyer. The waiting period before significant purchases, the time to research before committing, the space between wanting and buying that allows the wanting to be examined. The 24-hour rule for unplanned purchases interrupts the engineering designed to prevent that interruption. Most impulses don't survive a day. The ones that do might represent genuine value. The ones that fade were manufactured desire that would have become regret. The 11th thing that no longer makes financial sense is ignoring the compounding loss that everyday spending patterns create by focusing only on immediate costs. Small recurring expenses scale into thousands per year when totaled honestly. This much is obvious when stated directly. What's less obvious is how these totals translate into long-term wealth impact. Over time, that money could significantly grow if invested. The $100 monthly that flows to various conveniences could grow into substantial sums across decades. Not could theoretically, could actually, according to basic compound interest math that anyone can calculate. Opportunity cost is the real hidden loss in spending patterns, The expense isn't just what you pay, it's what that money would have become. Every dollar directed toward consumption is a dollar not directed toward accumulation. The consumption provides value now. The accumulation would provide freedom later. Everyday habits have long-term financial consequences that seem abstract until you calculate specific numbers. The daily coffee purchased over 30 years. The subscriptions maintained for decades. The convenience premium paid perpetually. The future values of these sums invested instead would shock most people. This doesn't mean eliminating all spending that could theoretically be invested. It means understanding the actual trade-off, rather than pretending no trade-off exists. The money spent on things you value is spent consciously. The money spent on things you don't value is simply lost. The calculation isn't complicated. Take recurring expenses that don't deliver proportional value. Calculate annual totals. Project those totals invested at reasonable returns across your remaining working years. The numbers clarify cost in terms that matter. The 12th thing that no longer makes financial sense is operating without systems that create visibility into what your money actually does. Without regular review, waste goes unnoticed. The subscription that should have been cancelled continues. The pattern that should be changed persists. The accumulation that should be addressed grows. Spending habits operate on autopilot after they're established. What started as a conscious decision becomes unconscious repetition. The behavior that was evaluated initially continues without re-evaluation. The circumstances that made something reasonable change while the behavior doesn't. Small leaks compound over time into significant drainage that would have been addressed if noticed. The problem isn't that people would knowingly waste money. The problem is that the waste is unknown, because nothing creates the knowledge. Awareness is the foundation of control. Without awareness, you're not choosing how to spend. You're defaulting. The defaults were designed by companies optimizing for their benefit, not yours. Most people never calculate the true cost of their habits. They know roughly what they spend in major categories. They don't know precisely what flows to each expense across a year. They don't know what percentage of income goes to things they wouldn't consciously choose. They don't know because they've never looked. The looking itself changes behavior. Conscious spending is rare but powerful. Understanding cost versus value shifts decisions instantly, without requiring willpower or sacrifice. The expense that seemed reasonable looks different when seen clearly. Financial control starts with recognizing hidden leaks. The leaks are hidden because no system reveals them. Creating that system creates visibility. Visibility creates opportunity for deliberate choice rather than automatic continuation. Let me step back from specific items to share the broader pattern I see. The economy has transformed in ways that require behavioral transformation from anyone who wants to maintain financial health. Household spending is increasing faster than income growth. This isn't perception, it's measurable reality. The gap between affordability and lifestyle is widening regardless of income increases. What used to be normal spending is now quietly harmful because the underlying costs have changed while behaviors haven't. The habits that were reasonable when costs were lower become damaging when costs increase but habits remain static. The system has evolved to maximize extraction, not marginally, fundamentally. The business models that once depended on delivering value have evolved to depend on extracting revenue regardless of value delivered. Your money either compounds for you or gets drained by systems designed to drain it. There's no neutral position where money just sits unchanged. The default is drainage because the systems touching your money are optimized for drainage. Financial success depends on adapting to new rules that the old intuitions don't reflect. The guidance that worked in the previous economy may not work now. The behaviors that were fine before may be harmful now. The assumptions embedded in how you spend may be outdated. I want to be clear about framing here because I'm not advocating extreme frugality or joyless deprivation. These purchases are not inherently bad. Convenience has value. Experiences have value. Quality has value. Subscriptions can provide genuine benefit. None of these categories should be eliminated from life. The issue is unconscious and excessive use that doesn't match actual value received. The problem isn't spending. The problem is spending without awareness or intention. Occasional use can still be justified for almost everything I've discussed. The delivery when genuinely needed. The subscription genuinely used. The upgrade that provides genuine improvement. The experience that creates genuine memory. The real problem is default. Repeated behavior without thought. when the occasional becomes constant, when the conscious becomes automatic, when the evaluated becomes assumed, that's when financial damage accumulates. The difference between those who thrive financially and those who struggle is often not income, it's awareness. The awareness of what money actually does, the awareness of what value actually flows from expenditure, the awareness that systems are designed to extract and that navigating those systems requires intentionality. Every category I've described involves spending that occurs without the scrutiny that would reveal its lack of value. The scrutiny is absent because no system creates it. Creating that system changes outcomes without requiring change in values or lifestyle. You can have convenience when convenience matters. You can have experiences that genuinely enrich. You can have quality where quality delivers benefit. Awareness doesn't eliminate these things. Awareness ensures you're choosing them deliberately rather than defaulting into them accidentally. The 12 things I've described no longer make financial sense because the conditions that made them sensible have changed. Adapting to changed conditions isn't deprivation, it's intelligence. It's recognizing that yesterday's rules applied to yesterday's economy. Today requires today's rules. The calculation I described at the beginning, the one where I confronted my accumulated recurring expenses, produced discomfort that led to action. The action wasn't becoming a different person. It was becoming the same person with better information, making more deliberate choices. That option is available to anyone who decides the discomfort of looking is preferable to the cost of not looking. Write in the comments which of these 12 patterns you recognize in your own financial life. Which behavior that felt normal might be costing you more than you realized. Sometimes naming the pattern begins the process of changing it. Share this with someone who works hard but can't figure out where their money goes. The systems designed to extract might explain the mystery. The awareness of those systems might change the outcome. The economy of this year operates by different rules than the economy of 5 years ago. The difference isn't just inflation, it's strategy, it's engineering, it's optimization of extraction that you are the target of. Recognizing this reality is the first step toward navigating it successfully. The second step is building the awareness systems that make invisible spending visible. The third step is deliberate choice about what actually deserves your money versus what has been capturing it through design rather than value. The money you're not aware you're losing could be building the financial future you want. Start looking. The picture might be uncomfortable. That discomfort could be the most valuable thing you experience this year, because once you see what's happening, you can't unsee it, and the seeing changes everything.